Welcome back to Let's Get Real, a talk show for guys to get support wherever you need support. Our phone number, 1-800-771-1025. Tell a friend to tell a friend. That's what Let's Get Real is all about. Logan's been on hold for a couple of minutes. And the question, Logan, I'm just going to come to you right now. Welcome to Let's Get Real. How much is too much weed? So let's start there, man. Where are you? How you feeling?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say I called you guys a couple of months ago. I'm the highly functioning alcoholic who became alcohol dependent. Me and Spanish hung out a couple of times down in Punta Gorda.
I do. Hello, man. Good to hear you, Logan.
I'm sure you guys get a lot of calls. Anyway, so I'm using weed to counteract my alcoholism, and I've actually made a lot of progress with it. But hearing that statement, dude smokes a whole lot of weed. How much is too much weed? Like, what really puts people off about a certain amount of consumption?
Well, I think let's start here. And Spanish, you said this off air, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was just basically like, what's the quantity that is in your mind would be too much? Like, and what notion or where did that come from? Does it come from a parent? Does it come from society? I'm just
No. I've just heard the comment that you guys were talking earlier. Dude was smoking copious amounts of weed, and I was wondering, like, what is the societal acceptance of certain amounts of weed these days? I mean, because it's obviously changing,
right?
But what do most people think is too much weed? Is it because you smell like it, or is it because they see you doing it all the time, or is it because you always act stoned?
But I feel like, all right, so let's unpack that a little bit, because I think you ask a really good question, Logan. What is too much?
Cool.
I don't have a answer, so I kind of want to frame this a little bit.
What would be your opinion?
Well, all right, so
I'm sure yours is more lax than others, but
yeah, mine would definitely be more lax than I don't necessarily. Here's where I go with weed is that if you're smoking too much and and you have a dependency on it, then there's something there. I don't think that weed is an addictive material, but it can be emotionally addictive. But like I think you kind of ask the same questions about too much weed that you would about any substance. Too much alcohol, too much coke, too much whatever.
Well,
at what point
without the addiction, but the dependency there, I think weed doesn't really fall into the same thing as addictive stuff.
Well, I think chemically addictive, no. But a lot of people will say, well, if you smoke weed all the time, you're emotionally addicted to it. That's what people will say. I'm not saying I'm saying that. I'm saying that that's what society might say. Look, the point I was going to go with this, Logan, is, well, by the way, first of all, before I say anything, good job on the reducing of the alcohol. Like, that's good.
Thank you very much.
So,
I've been working on it a long time, but this is the first time I think I could actually stop without going through a seizure.
Yeah, dude, that's
because
huge.
the amount is so low. But I'm really having a problem with the physical aspect now. Going to the store every morning to buy alcohol, buying alcohol every day at lunch, just the routine is still bothering me. I can't stop. You know, like I actually have had sometimes a small stockpile because I just go and buy it. And it's just such a routine that's been happening for 20 years. You know, that's the hard part now.
Yeah, and you got to break that, and that is challenging. But I just, again, if you're, reducing the alcohol, that's good. So onto the weed thing, I think where I was going to go with this a second ago is whenever you do anything that impacts or affects your everyday life, and that could be affects your, you show up late to work, or you don't show up at all, you've abandoned all relationships in your life simply because you're high. I think that's where you go, okay, it's a problem. You could be a high functioning.
Well, any destructive behavior from a substance obviously is not a good thing.
Right.
And if you can't recognize that, obviously other people will. A lot of people can't recognize that when you're on the substance. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And I think almost in some ways that's kind of a barometer, if you will. Like and we're not here. Spanish and I aren't going to ever say like, dude, you shouldn't smoke weed and you smoke too much. That's for you to figure. That's for you to figure out. Ultimately, we're just a sounding board.
You're logical thinking human beings. You're not there to judge people.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So I mean, ultimately, but I do. It's interesting. You're asking the question, what would society do? But ultimately, you're asking the question. So anytime somebody asks a question, generally, if you peel that onion back a few layers, it's like, well, there's a reason why maybe I'm asking that question.
Yeah. Like I always love to, like, I would love to ask you, so you're obviously questioning these things in your mind. Like you said, I know earlier you said that something that people may judge you on is if you smell like it or if you look high. And when people say things like that, where I like to go with it is, well, in your mind, why is that the first thing that stuck out? What is it in your personality that made you go there first?
I would honestly say if I said something to somebody, it would be because there was a contrast in either behavior or look. If you notice something different, you're going to say something about it.
Okay. So, but then what does it matter if they notice something different? If you're not on a destructive path, like you're telling us, that you are smoking, but it's in place of boozing. It's not a hindrance to you right now. You're still able to function properly. Why is that fear there?
Because I'm ramping up consumption.
I got you.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's been a steady, I'd say, it did slow down a little bit now, but no, it's been ramping up a bit for the past couple of months. And I'm just wondering at where the point, hopefully there is not a point, but at what point do I start to concern myself with this affecting other people? I mean, it's not going to affect my game, but, I don't want to also be, pointed out as a stoner because it's still a stereotype these days, that hasn't gone away yet, especially in a community like I am in with the average age probably being 65.
I think that people have a really funny way of taking things that they want to change about themselves and placing that on others. Like you said that you are not worried about yourself ramping up consumption, but it's going to bother other people. I think that is a really easy way to not have to face the power that you truly have to help yourself in this situation. And you're placing it then on an outward source saying, well, I don't want to bother these people. So that leaves you kind of with two options. Either you stop altogether, you could buy some spray so you don't smell like it and some eye drops, or you stop hanging out with people altogether. And none of those seem to be
extreme, don't you think?
I don't know. I'm just throwing these out there. Those are just examples, but the heart of it is, like I said, when
extreme examples.
why is it that you're saying that it's going to bother other people instead of saying, well, is it bothering you that it's bothering?
You hear people talk about people. That's just general experience. You hear people say that guy smells like weed or whatever, and you just wonder. You just don't want to be that guy. That's all.
Yeah, I get that. And you know what? I'll go back to this, Logan. I mean, at the end of the day, you may be asking this question because your consumption is ramping up, because you have this thing in your life from a very recent past of your alcohol use where it ramped up to a place that you ultimately had to get control over. So, there could be a all right, well, I'm just replacing one ill with another. I mean, and ultimately,
well, no, I mean, yes, but at the same time, I think it's a much less destructive source.
I'd agree with that. I would.
I mean, I find I'm doing a lot more creative things. I'm going into much deeper conversations, et cetera, et cetera. It's definitely helped my anger management problem. I was actually going to go to anger management until I started smoking, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." My wife said the same thing.
Well, and that's and again, I think there's other things. There's other factors. Like, I'll come back to your original question, Logan. How much is too much weed? And there's no answer. There's no clinical you can only smoke 2 joints a day or whatever. That doesn't exist.
Right.
Every person's different. But ultimately, there's a reason why there is medical marijuana and there's not medical alcohol. There are benefits to marijuana that people have seen, whether it's people with PTSD or people going through anger management or whatever. So I'd be more inclined.
Which is why I started on the path to replace that with that.
Right. So, I mean, I could say in one breath, don't replace one ill with another. But a lot of people do use safer alternatives to get away from things like alcohol or opioids or coke or things like that.
And if you're an addict, you're always going to be an addict. And in my world, being an addict is I'm always going to be addicted to something.
Right.
And if I can trade something better for something worse, It works for me.
Yeah, and I've seen that behavior in a lot of addicts that I've been around in my life, which is just that. They either replace alcohol with candy, or they replace food with sex, or they replace something. I mean,
cigarettes with sunflower seeds, right?
Something. There's always that thing. So, hey, man, Logan, this is a great conversation. We do have to jump to a break, man, but I appreciate the call. Do me a favor.
Man, there's no problem. I actually got to go. I have to pick up food for half the shop right now. So
all right,
I got to run.
Go do what you got to do. Take care, Logan. Have a good weekend.